global reach. You tune into Out of Bounds with TX. Tonight, talk about our second series of Black History in History Month. But before we get into that, let's bring in the crew. We only got two tonight, myself. So let's see who's going to be the first one to show. It's Cheryl and Henry at the same time. Ooh, that was quick. How you guys doing?
Great, great. How about you?
Doing great. How you doing,
Cheryl,
Miss
how you
Cheryl?
doing?
I'm doing okay. Happy mental health.
Yeah, we go. Well, let's just jump right on into it. Let's just, since Cheryl was the last one speaking, let's hear what Cheryl has to say about education in Black History Month.
My pleasure. I've been an educator for 20 years now. I am a school psychologist and I work with all ages from preschool through age 21. So, of course, I'm going to talk about Black educators. The very first Black female psychologist, her name is Inez Beverly Prosser, PhD. And what's so great about her, not only is she the first female Black psychologist, she is the first woman in America to get a PhD in any race. That's how bad we are.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
That's how bad we are. So just a few things about her. She was born one of 11 children. She was born at the end of the 19th century in South Central Texas. And she was educated in a colored school. And she taught for 18 years and then earning her PhD in 1933. She also did some work at Prairie View A&M. Shout out to the HBCUs out there.
Oh, very good.
And lastly, about her, she also, as a psychologist, says some very interesting things that are interesting to me because that is my field. She talked about how after she had been working for so long, teaching and then earning her PhD and then teaching at the HBCU, she concluded that Black children fared better in segregated schools with Black classmates and Black teachers. Specifically, she found that Black children from integrated schools experienced more social maladjustment, felt less secure in their social relationships, and had less satisfactory relationships with their families. So now, when Brown versus the Board of Education was around and coming up, they kind of disagreed with her. But she was unfortunately already deceased by that point. A year after she received her PhD in 1934, unfortunately, on her way to visit her family in Texas, she was killed in a car wreck in Shreveport, Louisiana. So she was only 36 years old. Her life was cut short, but her impact is still felt today. So once again, first female Black psychologist, first woman in America to get her PhD is a Black woman named Inez Beverly Prosser, PhD. That's my first fact.
Wow.
So very interesting to
Wow,
know.
that's amazing. That's amazing.
When I was searching for the first, I didn't know she was the first. You know, she's
she was the first.
The first.
She is
very
the first
woman.
That
to get
is
a PhD.
amazing. Wow.
I love it.
So she's not only the first woman, she's the first Black woman. That's amazing, especially that early. They didn't want us to really go to school. But I got a question since we're talking. So in her opinion, segregated schools were not good for Black children. Is that's what you were saying?
No. She said segregated schools were better for Black children.
That's okay. So she was saying that they should be segregated. So it should be all Black kids and Black teachers, and not what the board of education wanted to integrate them. Did she say any?
Yes.
She probably didn't know because sports wasn't that big then. I think they probably integrated them a lot. Maybe just because of the sports, because they wanted more athletic abilities in their school. But that's just here or there. So, but that's really amazing. That is something that I didn't even. Go ahead.
That's interesting you would say that because there was a football game I think it was football, where an all black school came and played an all white school. And of course, they clobbered
Mm-hmm.
them. After that, they started seeing like, we need some black players because they were just going to lose continuously. So I think sports is one reason what prompted universities to start integrating. So it's an interesting fact. Did
I
you have any
think
other
Prue was
questions about?
Alabama. I think Bear Bryant was the
Oh,
coach.
okay.
It was Alabama
Mhm.
because Bear Bryant wanted to. After they whooped, they said, "I need to get me some of them boys." That's what it is. He didn't say it in that, since we're trying to be politically correct on the show, but that's what he said. We can change boys to what the phrase was at that time. So that's amazing. Anything else before I go to Henry?
Well,
All right. Well,
I
Big
thought
Hank,
we said we would have
go ahead.
3. So I do have 2 more, but if we can go to Henry and then come back, that's fine.
Then I'll come back to we can do that. All right, Henry, give us yours, brother, because Cheryl don't want to steal the show.
There you go. There you go. Cheryl brought out some very interesting facts. And my people that I would like to bring to light is from the medical field. And we will start in the 1800s because I want to show how we came from slavery to today. So I have multiple people that I can talk about as well. But the first young man that I do want to talk about is James McCune Smith. Dr. Smith was born in 1813. He died in 1865. Very short life, but he was born into slavery in New York City in 1813. As a young man, James McCune Smith set his sights on becoming a doctor. And I don't know if you can imagine born into slavery and want to be a doctor, is amazing. Just to deal with the events that went on as a slave, and this guy wants to be a doctor. So he was denied admission to he was denied admission to American colleges because he was Black. But he was able to attend the University of Glasgow in Scotland, where he earned his bachelor, his master's, and his medical degrees at age 24. That is amazing. I mean,
Wow.
I look back on
That
my
is
life.
amazing.
I look back on my life, and dude, I was nowhere near or had the mindset that this young man had at age 24, becoming educated in the medical field. I know what I was doing at 24 wasn't nothing like that, so I commend the brother. Dr. Smith had a keen interest in languages also. He mastered Latin, Greek, French, and developed a working knowledge of Hebrew, Italian, Spanish, and German. I mean, those are mega languages, and some of those languages are very, very hard to learn. I speak very little Spanish, very little German, and that's just a hard deal. And for him to be accomplished in those languages is flat out amazing. When he returned to New York City in 1837, he established his own medical office and pharmacy at 93 West Broadway, making him the first African-American doctor. Let me repeat that, making him the first African-American doctor with his own practice in the United States. As a physician, he treated both Black and white patients. He and also served as the chief doctor in New York City's Colored Orpheum Asylum. Dr. Smith devoted much of his life to working with abolitionists to end in slavery of Black people in the South. He died about 3 weeks before the passage of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, which it abolished slavery. So you can only imagine the mindset that this guy had at such a young age. And I just think that he is like one of the forefathers of the medical field that I hope our people would know of him, know about him, and know of his accomplishments. That's my first fact.
That right there. It goes right along with Cheryl. That's amazing, and I think if I could speak boldly, I think those are the type of facts that need to be put out to the young people. I mean, it's great we
Absolutely.
got the current things out there, that they can see on TV or read on Instagram or on a computer, but that kind of stuff they don't get. And that's the kind of stuff that most young Black children uh, in middle school and elementary school, if they knew about those people and the achievements that they made, even at the harsh times that they were living just to be Black. Both of y'all said, the 1800s to the early 1900s. That was really harsh times for Black people in America, and it throughout history. Even though they're trying to erase our history, it's amazing that those two people that we just made did something that was profound, but it was the first done by them, i.e., the first Black doctor, i.e., the first Black lady to get her PhD. Uh, that was news to me. I didn't
Amazing.
even know that. That's just outstanding. That's outstanding.
Amazing.
That's outstanding.
Yes.
So I'll say my little bit here in a minute. We'll go into something else. We got some more wonderful information for you guys, but mine's just is history of me. I'm an older gentleman. People don't know that by now, and I've seen America change. I've seen America change, and I'm just going to just give you a little bit. Then we'll go on to the next question for Cheryl. So she can get her thing going, and then I can after Henry say something else. But I want to let everybody know when I was born. No, I'm sorry. I was born Negro. It says Negro. I was born Negro, and back then, being born Negro was anybody that had over a tenth of that blood in them. So my ancestors are Cuban, American Indian, and Black, and because I had more of all that in me, I was a Negro. So we'll get to on that because I don't want to hold you on this. But before we go, I want to say this thing is I don't want to have to cut Cheryl off. Thank you for tuning in to TAN TV, the African American Network, where we have a local feel with a global reach. And here we go, Cheryl. Give us some more of that mad doctoring that you got going on there.
Well, education and psychology always excite me.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Oh, I know.
continue to dig around some more, and
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to talk about the first teacher who actually taught openly. Her name is Susie King Thomas. She was born in
Mm-hmm.
1848 and she died in 1912. She was the first Black teacher to teach openly in a school for former slaves. She was also born a slave on a plantation in
Mm-hmm.
Georgia. And it's just so insane that, like what Henry was saying, like their mindset was so clear that they were going to do something and make an impact.
Mm-hmm.
So she was the very first teacher who taught after being enslaved. She attended an illegal school taught by freed slaves by another enslaved woman named Mrs. Woodhouse. And they educated the enslaved people, even though it was a danger to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So that is Susan. Oh, one more fun fact about her, or notable fact.
Mm-hmm.
She was also the first Black Army nurse to serve in an all Black regiment during the Civil War. Her
Wow.
husband
Wow.
also was a fighter or a soldier in the Civil War as well. It's just interesting what they all have done. But on the
Hey.
same thing about being first, and then I'll end with something else when it comes back to my turn. The first Black
Mm-hmm.
male teacher. His name was Robert Louis Gilbert. And he was the first Black teacher to be hired in a white school. He recounted that he felt nervous teaching white kids. But when he began teaching, he detected that there were some geniuses, some average, and some mediocre whites, just as there were Blacks. So that's what he was
Right.
quoted on in my research. Because, there's this thing that they think we're not smart as they are.
For
So
sure.
when he starts teaching, he's like, nah, there's some ones that aren't as intelligent, the same as anyone else across the board. So those are the two names for the very first teachers, Susie King Taylor and Robert Louis Gilbert.
Mm-hmm.
Very good, very good, very informative.
Out there, Cheryl, that back then, in the time that we're talking about, there were a lot of great black people that made inventions, uh, did things, but because they were black, they were stolen by someone else. And in history, it shows them as first. I.e., we were talking when we was talking offset about the gentleman who actually electricity of the light bulb, and was it
Louis
Benjamin
Latimer
Franklin
improved the
stole?
light bulb.
Yeah, yeah. So it was
He
first,
improved
and then it
it.
was stole from him. Yeah, but because he was a slave at the time, they want to just they just want to say, "Hey, you ain't that smart." And in all honesty, back in the days when there was only one slave to read to the to the slave people, the enslaved and people themselves, was 9 times out of 10 only the preacher, and he was taught to read the Bible. And it's unfortunate that that's how the white slave owners kept the black people in check through the Bible, by they manipulating the Bible, which is they still do today. But we won't go on that because Henry knows a lot more about the Bible than I do. So without further ado, we'll go right back to Henry for his second one. Go ahead, Henry.
Wow, wow, wow. Okay. And I'm gonna make a comment. I'll make a comment toward the end as well.
Okay.
Cheryl, very informative. That is
Yes.
huge. I know my dad was an educator, and he came through segregation and so forth, and it was very difficult for him as an educator to teach different diverse classes. But
Right.
my second person, the first young man I talked about was from a male. So the second person that I want to talk about is a female, and it is Jane
Okay.
Cook Wright. Sister Wright was born in 1919, and she passed in 2013. Sister
Wow.
Wright, Sister Wright
Mhm.
was one of the first African American graduates of Harvard Medical School. Miss Wright grew up with a keen interest in healthcare. Her father was Dr.
Wow.
Lewis Wright, who also was the first Black doctor appointed to a staff position in a municipal hospital in New York City. And in 1929, the city hired him as a police surgeon, the first African American to hold that position. After earning her medical degree, Dr. Jane Cook Wright worked alongside her father at the Cancer Research Foundation in Harlem, which her
Mm.
father established in 1948. Together, father and daughter researched chemotherapy drugs that led to the remission in patients with leukemia and lymphoma. In 1952, her father died of tuberculosis. Sister Wright became the head of the Cancer Research Foundation at the age of 33.
Wow.
Amazing. She
That is. That
created
is.
an innovative technology. She created an innovative technology to test the effect of drugs on cancer cells by using patients' tissue. And just imagine what we do with that today, to test the
Mhm.
effect of drugs on cancer cells by using patients' tissue rather than laboratory rats, mice. She advanced the work of the director of cancer. She advanced to work as the director of cancer chemotherapy in New York City, a medical center, and she was the associate dean of New York Medical College. The New York Cancer Society elected Sister Wright as its first woman president in 1971. Her research helped transform chemotherapy from a last result to a valuable treatment for cancer. So you look at where we are now with cancer. There's cancer research,
Mhm.
Atlanta, Texas, Georgia, all over. And she was the foundation of that.
Mm.
Her, and just amazing,
Wow.
and especially at the age of 33. And
Mm.
Terry, before I get off my soapbox, I do want to say one other thing, and this is just my view. This is not a view of TAN TV, so this is my personal view. Until people realize that we are the same. There's no difference in a European American and an African American. The only difference is the pigmentation or the melanin in their body. You know,
True.
we're all
Very
God's
true.
creature. We're all God's children. And well, we're God's children if we profess Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior.
That's it.
But I don't want to get
Amen.
into I don't want to get into religion, but that's it. Until we treat people like human beings, black, white, Asian, you know, that's where we got to be.
That's
As
You
one
know,
of
but
them.
I got before you go, I want to ask you a question. Wasn't
Yes, sir.
those cancer cells they working on, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't that from a black woman that helped
Not at that
find?
time.
Not at
Yeah.
that time, it was
Later.
after that. Oh, okay,
And
it was
those were
later. I
white
was just
people who
checking.
stole. Those were white people who stole Henrietta Lacks's cells, not a
Okay.
black
All
woman.
right. I was just asking because that's amazing. That is amazing. I figured they stole it, used her technology to figure it out, you know, but hey, who's there? All I'm saying is that just the tidbit that you both, just how much in black people, the technology in America. And Henry said another thing. It is very true. We all, they always want to call interracial or whatever they want to call it, but only one race. That's a human race.
Human race.
And if
Absolutely.
you look at animals, a dog can't reproduce with a cat. You know, elephant can't reproduce with a rhinoceros. It just don't happen. They have to have the same. Now, two big cats can, you know, a lion and a tiger, but they're the same. They're the same family. So all this stuff about going back and all that, and that's what I'll go to real quick before we get to y'all last segment, real quick. So I was
Okay.
born Negro in the '60s. I became colored. I seen it in Toledo, Ohio. I witnessed the Martin Luther King march on TV, and I also witnessed riots in the street down there on Bancroft and Vermont, and it was pretty gruesome, but it was informational for me to look back and see that. Uh, then, as I became in the '70s, as y'all all know, we started sporting those afros. We became Afro Americans, and then we became from that we became in the '80s we were black, and now we're African American. And I just want to integrate what Henry said. Throughout my lifetime, I've changed that many times from still being the same person I am today. And I think that if we just can get rid of the surnames, that everything would be fine and everything would be just history. It doesn't have to be black history. All this will roll into just one American history. But someone told me at the gym, Big Mike said that the people rules. And so that's why we're really European Americans, because they just call themselves white and they're the true Americans because they were born. Pretty sure everybody on this screen here, I'm pretty sure was born. Memphis, Chicago, Toledo, we're all born right here. So I don't get it. But anyway, go ahead, Cheryl. Give us your last segment, then we'll get back to Henry.
Just on the note of African American, do either one of you know who coined that term?
I don't.
Ooh,
I'm sorry.
That
Was
is
it
Jesse Jackson.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Jesse Jackson coined the term African American. Just a little FYI.
Yeah, no, but yeah.
I love facts and I love history. And then also, we were here way before the Europeans were here. There's a whole interesting study and all this research going on about what is a true
sure.
Native American. That is us and them
Mhm.
together. Okay,
Yeah.
Africans have been going all over the world forever. Okay, my last person, because we just bad. So my last person, I actually have a picture of her.
Okay, there she is.
So she is the first Black African American female superintendent in Lynette City School District, which is in Lynette, Alabama. And I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
end with current Black history because
Mm-hmm.
she has been the superintendent since 2019. And she calls her job, just like my mother was an educator as well. She says, I'll just say this is a ministry. This is not a job for me. This is a quote from Dr. Boyd. She was born
Okay.
and raised in Lynette. She attended Lynette schools all the way through high school. She graduated from high school in 1994. She
Mm-hmm.
began teaching and she never thought she would be a teacher. She officially became the superintendent of Lynette City Schools in November 2019. She says, and I quote, I'm hoping that my life is an example, a good example for someone else,
Yeah.
and that it causes them to believe in themselves and pursue their own goals. And she also ends by saying she is thankful for the opportunity and thankful for being chosen. So I wanted to end with some current Black history because our ancestors are still looking down upon us. One day, all of us on this Zoom will be an ancestor, and we're still
That's for
making
sure.
history today. And I just wanted to keep that in mind. And if I'll say one thing about my own life, I was the first Black psychologist in Beaumont Unified, which is in California. And I'm the first Black
All right,
psychologist in
go
my
ahead.
current district, which is Val Verde Unified School District in Paris,
All
California.
right.
So I am
So
in
you a
Black history
groundbreaker.
myself.
You are definitely.
And that's
I knew I loved you for a reason. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. All right, Henry, go ahead. That's
Absolutely.
gonna be hard to follow. Go ahead, Henry.
Absolutely. Cheryl did an excellent job. Very, very informative. I learned something tonight. So very much. So thank you very, very much. I too wanted to learn to end on a current fact with a person. And I started in the 1800s, went into the 1900s, and now to touch very little about the medical field, but just showing as another first, okay? As
Mm-hmm.
the first Black First Lady, 2009 to 2017, of the United States,
Mm-hmm.
Michelle Obama devoted much of her time and energy promoting physical health, which was brought to our attention through her early childhood
Mm-hmm.
of obesity. And she went into schools wanting the young people to feel good about themselves and to show that, hey, I'm at the pinnacle of the
Mm-hmm.
pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
My husband is at the pinnacle of the pyramid. If you can conceive it, you can achieve it. And I'm living proof of that. And I just wanted to bring those facts about our people, which we can still go on into the next century being first. So
We
it
will.
doesn't stop there.
We will.
Absolutely.
It doesn't stop
Oh, I
there.
love that,
Well,
Henry. I'll forever
that
flow
was
this. I'll
really that
forever
was
flow
great,
this.
wasn't it? Well, my
Yes, I
last bit
enjoyed them.
is gonna be woke. I just want everybody to wake up and see what's happening in Jackson, Mississippi. If you haven't heard about it, uh, the white majority outside of the city of Jackson, because the city of Jackson is 80% Black, have cornered off an area where they call themselves cutting down on crime, and that area has private judges and private police force. So my warning today, I'm putting it out here right now on TAN TV, that you need to stay awoke and watch what you're doing down south, because if they continue to, if that passes, I'm sure it's going to run through the south like wildfire. And that's really frightening, because that right there is the first step of racist supremacy coming back. That's all it is. You know, you can't say we're trying to help crime when you hire white police officers that don't work for that city, work for them. So they're really hired, they're really security, something else. It's really scary to hear that. I recommend that you stay awoke and watch TV, read it on the internet, if while it's still there before they change the narrative, and also, you know, do your own research so you can show yourself that we're not stupid. We just don't go out and buy Gucci and all that stuff that they say we do. We're really smart people, and I think we had a lot of great help. We have to say that, Let's just be real. Without anything, with Black Lives Matter, if white people wasn't involved around the world, it went just away. It just went just away because nobody would care. So my hats off to the white people and the Latino people and the Asian people that step forward and does that. I mean, I look at what they call it Semitic when you do something to a Jew, but Jewish people are white according to the standards in America.
This sect of Judaism is white. The original Jews are not white.
I understand that. I'm not trying to. I'm just talking about today. We're doing current. I'm talking about the day. But they make a big deal if somebody shoots one of them, because then it becomes racism instead of what it just is, a murder. So I'm not downplaying anybody's life in any race. I'm just saying all lives matter. All lives should be protected the same way. With that said, before I say anything else, do you guys want to say anything?
Excellent show, man. For me, it's a learning experience for me. And man, kudos to Cheryl.
Some knowledge.
Excellent. Kudos to you too, Terry, about your life experiences, man. So huge. I enjoyed tonight, man.
Yeah. Another interest of mine has always been
always learning. And they always say you can't teach your old dog new tricks, and that's a lie. You're still learning. I'm still learning today. And with that being said, thanks everybody for tuning in to TAN TV, the African American Network. We have a local feel with global reach. This is Out of Bounds with T-Rex, with Big Hank, and my main girl Cheryl, the Doctor of Love. Okay, everybody. Then throw up, Doc. Enemy throw up the yo. You gotta throw up your little triangle. Come on, show it to us, girls. There you go. There you go. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week on segment 3. Some of the people will be back. JP, Andrea will be back, and we'll be ready to roll again with the full crew. Without that said, be woke. Check your sixes, everybody. That's your back. Peace out. Thank you.